Hey everybody, thank you for joining me again. So my first video I did earlier today apparently is still processing and it's only showing the first 3 minutes of that video, but according to the stuff I looked up, once it's done processing, it should have the whole 43 minutes up, which I hope so because um, the stop I initially wanted to go to didn't work out. Their doors were locked, and even though they said they opened at 11 on their website and online, their doors were still locked at 11:10. So in the video, y'all got to join me as I figured out another location to go to, and it turned out there was another one within walking distance that I hadn't even thought about going to, but it turned out to be an amazing twist of events. Everything happens for a reason, and so I do still have a little bit of the tea left over from that visit. I don't want to give too much away because I'm really hoping that live stream, once it's fully processed, that um, I can edit the wait periods, and be able to upload that as a regular video, and then y'all can join along with me when that one is finished processing. Um, so the title of this video is that this year I'm doing something a little different, and this is my second ever scheduled live stream. This year for my birthday, I decided this past week to do something a little different, other than some retro thrift store finds that I got for myself. There wasn't really anything other than this snow cone machine that I really wanted. I didn't want any more clothes. I didn't want any shoes. I didn't even want to go out and shop or really explore too much beyond the tea time tour. So I just feel content. I feel very grateful. And this year I decided to do a few things a little different for my birthday, which was actually yesterday, but I was doing all the prepping and everything yesterday. So today's activity, I'm going to be making grain-free, soy-free, and corn-free cookies in honor of my kiddos that are no longer with me. I've had multiple miscarriages in my life. I do have one living child, but if y'all have watched my other videos about my childhood abusers who then in my adulthood became stalkers and then tried to use my child to bring me back into their abusive fold, and in my I felt it was in the best interest of my safety to just keep my distance, and so but uh, so for my birthday this year, I want to honor my multiple celestial kiddos. And I find it kind of extra meaningful because this month is also National Breastfeeding Month. And it's kind of wild, but even to this day, I still produce a little breast milk. And I actually smile because even though my kiddos are with my ancestors, I still have that reminder that they were once in me and that they will always be a part of me. And I also, so the second thing that I'm doing different this year is I decided to, instead of buying more things for myself, to make a gift basket for the special someone in my life. He is the same one who joined me on my recent travel videos. I think he may have been in the background, or maybe his voice was in the background. Or something, but his birthday was a few months ago, but we didn't really get to celebrate it much because there was a lot going on at the time. He, he actually has no idea that I'm doing this for him, so he'll be showing up later this evening, probably after the video is done, and I can't wait to surprise him with that. And then 3, while we're going through the activity uh, and everything, I wanted to make some revelations about myself that I've kind of hinted at in some of my other videos, like uh, what I believe in, some of my life journeys, and just like my heritage and different stuff like that. So the rest of this story is just going to kind of be a meandering story time while I make these cookies. I might try to make snow cones if, well, actually I can't because I forgot to go grab the ice, but maybe in another video I'll make the snow cones. So anyways, we're just getting lost in the moment while I make these cookies, and this video will be going on for a while, so if anyone joins later, that would be cool. But off screen, I ground up the grain-free, soy-free, corn-free flour. I like to grind my own flour, and this one is almond flour. And I've also been thinking about, I've gotten my study material for renewing my food license, and I'm thinking about like possibly selling some flour. Um, Not like the ones that you find like in all the stores, but maybe some ones that are like maybe a bit more difficult to find or something. But it's still, a work in process. I'm still planning the menu and everything. And it's still going to be a bit out there, like, a few months, maybe more, because last time I took the test for my license when I had my small business the first time, it was a pretty tough test, a pretty tough certification. So, or at least the version of the certificate that I go for, it was, at least for me, it was pretty tough. So, um, I'm giving myself plenty of time to study for it, and that'll give me plenty of time to work out the menu and all that cool stuff. So, big things are going to be happening in the future, but right now it's, getting, working the stuff out and studying and everything. But anyway, so I ground up this flour, and I'm just going to kind of wing this recipe maybe, because it's been a while since I've made grain-free cookies, and I'm wearing this as a hairnet and stuff. So the one thing about grinding your own your own flour is it can be a bit grainy, but not too bad. But I need to invest in a sifter. But for now, this is, I might add a little bit more. But yeah, so one thing that I thought I would talk about is, when I film or even take pictures for my social media pages, is why do I cover my face? Well, so sadly, one of my childhood abusers is still alive and out there. It's been a while since they've tried any what I call shenanigans, but actually this past January, so 8 months ago, one of their family members showed up at the place I was working at the time. And mind you, like, this whole clan, and then, like, they, unless they've moved or something, they live, like, over an hour away. So they didn't really have any reason to be at that store. And there were multiple lanes open. So, like, this lady who is part of their family, she could have gone to, like, any of the lanes, but she decided to go to my lane, and I don't know what she thought was going to happen, that I'd be, like, excited to see her. It's like, I mean, if y'all have watched my other videos or, heard me tell my story in person, they're the reason that everything happened that resulted in me having to give up my child, the reason I was starved for 6 months and everything. So, like, I don't know what she thought, that I'd just be like, oh, yeah, hi, how are you? So I know. So I just kind of stare at her, and she says something like, man. And I just said hi. And she's like, hi, how are you? And I just looked at her, and I was like, you did know what happened, right? Like, I'm over here thinking, no, like. So this peanut butter is awesome. It's no stir, and it doesn't contain any canola, vegetable oils, nothing like that. So a little known fact is, like, if you have corn allergies like I do, vegetable oil and canola oil also contain corn oil. And so, yeah. But, so yeah, I was like, you didn't know what happened, right? She's like, oh yeah, I heard about that. And I was like, no. What happened was they hunted me down like I was an animal, created a story that, that my health conditions were fake, that Theo, who I named my small business after, who passed away of his health conditions, and next month will be the anniversary of his death. And this year, every year I like to raise awareness for his condition, because it's very, very rare, and to create more understanding, because I think if at least the small community we were living in at the time, which was far away from, where I am now, they were very unknowledgeable about certain conditions, and he and I got a lot of backlash because our conditions were stuff that, like, that small community wasn't very well versed on. So, but yeah, so I told her, I was like, yeah, no, what happened was they, you know, turned the whole community against us because of our health conditions, created stories about that it was all fake and that we were, you know, endangering our child and everything just because we predicted that she was going to inherit the same conditions. And it turned out later that stuff was found out that she did, but it was well after all the stuff had wrapped up and everything. But I forgot to go grab some water and sugar. I will be right back. So I always cook with bottled water because tap water, contains chlorine and, a lot of chemicals to kill bacteria. And then I actually grew up on well water, but as my liver disease progressed, it struggles with well water, and I think it's because of all the unfiltered minerals in the well water. So I only ever cook with bottled water because it doesn't have all that other stuff that's harsh on someone who has a genetic form of fatty liver disease, or it's also called a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But anyway, so I told this lady, I was like, yeah, no. And I said, and I've done like all these DNA tests. Y'all don't appear to be my family, or at least the man who raised me appears not to have been any relation to me. And if he was, it was like a very, very distant cousin, according to the the I want to say like genetic algorithm, but that's not like the right word. But anyways, his family surname was like very distant related to me. I'm actually genetically more closer related to the O'Day clan, which is pretty cool. And I'll talk a little bit later about all the cool insights, go more into depth about that. So I told this lady, I've done all these DNA tests, and I don't really know who y'all are to me. And I said, if any of my childhood abusers find out where I am, I'm not afraid to do what I have to be safe. I think I want to in another video talk about I read a article and listened to a really famous psychologist who specializes in narcissistic abuse and narcissistic abuse awareness. And it's really sad that oftentimes the victim is punished by the legal system instead of the actual abuser, because the abuser will play everybody and make the victim look like the unhinged one, which is kind of like what happened to me. I got away from my childhood abusers. They proceeded to hunt me down and then used my child to And the fact that I guess I was figuring out that um, that I had genetics and stuff that uh, didn't really fit their story of where I came from, and that I was part of their family or whatever it was. But so yeah, and then I ended up being the one who was uh, punished, but now I use my story to help raise awareness, and that's okay. Uh, so yeah, I also try to not cook a lot with sugar. I usually try to use maple syrup, but with all the moving that I had to do because of my apartment, I've tried to switch more to maple sugar. I have this, and I have another sugar thing, but I thought the maple one would be pretty good. Let's see, I might have to add some more water to this in a minute. But yeah, and this month is actually National Breastfeeding Month, and it's also National Health Month, which is really cool. I like to raise awareness on how fatty liver disease affects a whole range of different things. Um, like I use herbs, and I completely changed my diet once I realized um, what I had. Like way before I even had any of my kiddos, I had figured out just with like research and everything that something with my digestive system was not functioning properly. And I had figured out with my eating journals that some of it was related to when I would eat grains. Well, cutting grains out took away my allergic reactions, which were getting very, very bad, very scary. I've kind of talked about that in other videos, so I won't go into that a whole lot, um, but it wasn't until oh my gosh, it was a year after Theo passed away, and when I had my only living child, uh, all the tests had flagged a bunch of abnormalities with my liver, but no one actually told me anything about it. I found out after I looked back through the records from the hospital and stuff. So from that, and then Theo's condition attacked a lot of his organs, including the liver, and so I learned a lot from his doctors, which were superb. Like, they were incredible. Um, so about a year after he passed, I started having a lot of problems with my liver again. So I went to a local clinic, and she was amazing, like really amazing. And so she, ran tests and everything, and she told me what I had, and uh, so thankfully I had learned a lot from Theo's doctors about what to eat, not to eat. So I adapted my diet and everything, and so I guess kind of going into story time, and um, my spiritual journey kind of goes. My spiritual and personal journey kind of go hand in hand with my health journey, because 2015 was like probably one of the most pivotal years of. Look at that! Doesn't that look cool? So I used Unreal milk chocolate gems. These are amazing. They don't contain any grains, corn, or soy. I absolutely love these, and yeah, so put them in the cookies. But so I grew up in I'm just gonna say a more mainstream belief system, and 2015, I just graduated college. I was starting my small business up, and like even though like all this really awesome stuff had just started up or just finished in my life, like I had a lot of unresolved, pent up stuff from what I went through as a child. And it kind of just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to be an angry, bitter person. And, this mainstream belief system that I grew up in is just, it's not giving me the tools that I need, or, you know, so I'm a INTJ personality type. I've taken 3 personality tests, a Myers-Briggs personality test, and INTJs are not only one of the most rare of the personality types, but they're very, very logical, very like, I want the steps, uh, I want results, and if there's no steps, no results, nothing like that, like it's deemed inefficient by INTJs, and I'm not any exception, and I'm not saying that like mainstream belief systems are bad. They work for some people, but for me, they didn't. So I was dating someone at the time. This was back in 2015. Just reminding, but I was dating someone at the time who had a lot of Zen and Buddhist books and books on mindfulness and meditation, and that just was the pivotal like lightning bolt in my life. It taught me how to mindful breathe. It taught me the tools through the Buddha's Eightfold Path, and um, then also, Taoism and Zen on not forcing things, like, letting things happen naturally. And it was very pivotal. And so I started practicing that. And then one of the most amazing things, I went to buy my own book on mindfulness and everything. And I was at this bookstore, and I'm looking through the different books, and this guy is just suddenly like right there. And I don't really remember what he all said, but he, was talking to me about meditation and mindfulness and everything. And it was just like one of those moments that like kind of had like an otherworldly feel to it. And uh, so I looked away to, pick up one of the books, and when I looked back up, like, he was gone. And I was like, this is a sign. So that day I bought a mindfulness book, and I bought the Dhammapada, and kind of like, I'm not going to say like the rest is history, but that laid the foundation for my journey. And I'm going to go put these in the microwave. And it's been a while since I've done microwave cooking, so hopefully I kind of remember the settings that I would do for that. And I'll be right back, and I'll continue this talk. All right. So from like 2015 onwards, I was starting to kind of piece together that I wasn't quite like everyone in the family that I was raised in. And the older I got and the more I kind of started piecing stuff together, I was kind of like, their stories aren't quite matching up every time I ask them about, like, well, hey, who are our ancestors? Like, where do we come from? And all this other stuff. So I was kind of like, So back then, like, DNA stuff was, just kind of starting to take off and everything. And so at the time, all I had to work with was like, genealogy records, which are, great, but records can be altered and, stuff like that. I kind of gone into my own experiences with that and some of my other videos. So I'm not going to go into that like in this video, but so I remember like when they started like advertising, DNA kits on. I'm gonna let that cool off for a minute. They started advertising DNA kits on like the television and stuff. Like the couple that raised me, they were like, "Oh, well, those like can't be accurate. Like, they're not gonna like tell the truth and like all this stuff." I remember going like, "What? This is like so weird." And like anytime that I expressed interest, like they would try to dissuade me from, getting one or whatever. And at the time, I had like other bills and stuff like that going on, so I didn't have like the money, to do that kind of stuff at the time and whatever. And I think everything happens for a reason. And so when I got by the time I got away from them, I was starting to look into, like, my ancient ancestors, and I already had that foundation in like Taoism and Buddhism, and I really felt a connection with like the ancestors that I knew at the time. Uh, like when later down the road, when I got my DNA results from multiple DNA companies, it all started making sense. But like, I guess you'd say on a spiritual level, like I was very drawn to like Celtic mythology, Slavic mythology, and even when it came to wanting to learn languages, I was always drawn to like specific languages. And with the limited knowledge I had in those years, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I was like, why do I feel such a connection, when I'm being told that, like, I don't have this or that in me, but I just feel this deep, like, connection and everything. So, years went by. I started separating myself from them like as much as possible until I could, build up the resources to get away from them. And then into my life came Theo. And so I have a degree in history with anthropology, and he had spent his whole life until he met me, like, studying the ancient myths. He was really fascinated with anthropology and history and stuff. So it was really like two nerds coming together and like just nerding out all the time. So like one of the fun little things that we would do is we would like to compare our body builds and our skull shapes to like ancient populations. And so we started kind of forming hypothesis about like what other DNA may be in us that just wasn't being told to us and whatever. Well, fast forward after everything happened and everything, and one of the very first things that I did was I got a DNA test, and it started revealing so many things. And then since then, I've done 8 DNA tests now. A lot of them are geared more towards the ancient populations, and so much of it makes sense. I'm gonna go check on those cookies real quick. Oh my gosh, look at that. They are firm but gooey at the same time. Y'all, we did good. I'm not gonna eat these just yet. I'm gonna save them for a little bit later. But so yeah, so much of it made so much sense. Like, I'm sad that he passed before a lot of his hypothesis about my heritage and where my ancestors came from was revealed because he got, a good portion of it right. And it's just sad that he didn't get to see in the physical world that, he got a lot of it right. And so it turns out, according to all these different DNA tests, I'm not a spokesperson for all these different DNA companies, so I'm not going to be, throwing names out there and everything, but I'm not sure how all the parameters of YouTube is about that kind of stuff, so I'm just going to kind of play it safe. But a lot of the ones that are tailored more towards the ancient populations, depending on which ones they are, say that 40 to 60% of my genetic makeup comes from the ancient hunter-gatherers of Europe, meaning like the Ice Age population, what I usually refer to when I talk about this subject is the original indigenous population of Europe. And, there's still pockets of that original population in different parts of Europe, and one branch of my ancestry appears to have been some of the Ice Age groups that eventually developed into the Native American groups. So that was really cool. So I share DNA with like some of the Clovis sites, but I don't share any DNA with any of the Native American tribes, so I'm guessing it was a population that was ancestral to them, but yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then another test said that I had about 8% Sami, and some of the others say like the Scandia region. I also have some traces of the Samoyedic Siberian tribes, and then native Siberian from the Yakutia region, so that's pretty cool too. I was told my whole childhood that I was like mostly Irish and Germanic, but kind of how I suspected with their stories not adding up. It turns out that, according to my DNA results, that I do have Celtic in me, but it's more of the like southern Brythonic tribes that became like Cornwall and the southern part of Britain. So, and then also like the Belgium region. One of the heat maps for you could set up, like there was like the sliding bar that you could slide to go to different time periods. And what's kind of cool is my ancestors just stayed in like this one area for like thousands of years, and so that's really neat. They had that really, apparently, deep tie to the land, and their home and everything, and so they just stayed in that area for hundreds and thousands of years. So that was really neat. So like all these results from these genetic tests just made so much sense, because everything just kind of clicked. And then it also turns out it's not a really high percentage, but like depending on the DNA test, I have between like 1 to, I want to say like 5 or 6% Eastern Slavic from the uh, Polish and Ukrainian area. So kind of going back to, growing up, I had like this really deep connection to certain languages and certain mythologies. It all just kind of clicked and made sense. Uh, but yeah, so kind of going back to my spirituality and like my beliefs, I always kind of struggled to explain like what I believe in, and or in a way that people can kind of grasp. Like, I believe in my ancestors and I practice mindfulness. And when I put it that way, like, people just kind of look at me blankly, like I'm speaking a different language. But my special someone, uh, he put it in a really neat way. He said, like, when people ask him, like, oh, well, like, what does your girlfriend like believe in? He says, well, she kind of like practices a blend of like Zen and shamanism. And I was like, that actually is a very good way to describe it, because I just pay attention to nature. I try to connect with my ancestors, and um, and then do my best to follow the Eightfold Path of the Buddha and mindfulness and everything. And so yeah, like so that's kind of like my deep dive in a nutshell, I guess. I'm really proud of learning the heritage that I have, and like having this deeper connection with like where I come from. And it's just like a beautiful thing. And I hope that like I can continue to try to piece together and put together more of like what my ancestors may have, thought about the world, or how they viewed the world, because so much has been lost. And I since I got my degree, I've kind of leaned more towards a field called archaeomythology, which combines studying mythology with archaeological finds. And that's what I've been, studying since I earned my degree, is that, with kind of the goal of like, what did my ancestors think about the world around them, and what were their languages, what were their lives like, and I think I've met a lot of people where they don't seem to want to have that kind of connection with where they come from. And I think it's a very sad thing because, you know, for all these thousands of years, all these people came together to lead to, you know, a particular individual or whatever. Like, you know, for me, all these, you know, people that show up on a heat map or a ancient match or whatever, like they all came together through all these thousands of years to lead to me. And that's a very humbling and amazing thought. And like, I think it's also beautiful that, you know, I'm seeing a lot of younger generations, you know, across many cultures that are going back to their ancestral wisdom and, you know, asking these questions like, well, who are my ancestors? What did they believe? What languages did they speak? You know, like, because, I mean, that's a part of your blood. That's like a part of who you are. And I know that my life has been enriched and just made incredible with this path that I started in 2015. And I'm thankful, you know, that I had that moment where I picked up that one book and I was like, this is it, you know. And I don't know, it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I hope more and more people begin to connect with where they came from more, you know, and more with nature and respecting nature and everything, because you know, without nature, this world is a dead planet. And nature can hold a lot of wisdom and lessons if you just still yourself and listen. And there's wisdom all around us. It's just waiting for us to listen. So, real quick before I wrap this up, I did want to show some of my thrift store hauls. I say hauls, but it was just like a few things. So I've been kind of nostalgic for like more vintage kind of cooking. And so I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, and I remember like recipes being a bit different back then, and then like all the cool cookbooks that existed back then. And you know, everything's kind of like digital and very kind of cookie cutter modern and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I have like some really cool modern like cookbooks and stuff. And I'm really grateful for how much progress has been made for recipes and food and cooking for those who have food allergies and certain health conditions and stuff. And so, like, I'm really thankful for that. And I have some really cool modern cookbooks of that. But, like each time period kind of has their own, like, different take on food. And I've just been kind of nostalgic for those old cookbooks. So I went to a local thrift store and I found these two. And this one is fruit infused water. And I love teas, I love juices, I love mixing the two. And this book is from 2014. And so, that wasn't like too long ago, but it was still, I guess, kind of towards, hey, it was a year before my journey, so that's kind of cool. So, like, I think for copyright reasons, I can't, like, show too much of this book, but it has some really cool, like, recipes for just, like, adding fruit to your water, and then I guess it just kind of, like, percolates in the water or whatever. I haven't tried any yet. I just got this, like, Monday or Tuesday, so it's only been like a couple of days, so I haven't had time to try this, but I'm really looking forward to trying this, and I'll let y'all know how it goes. And then this one is a bit older, so from my teen years. I'm kind of revealing how how old I am now, but so this one is from 2007. It's a Southern Living cooking school. And one of the things I remember, especially from like my teenage years, is that blending like citrus flavors with your food was like a big thing. Like, I just remember citrus everywhere, like fruit and citrus everywhere. And that's something that you don't really find, or at least in the cookbooks that I've been looking at, like the more recent ones, like that's not something you find as much anymore. So I was really happy to find this one because it has a few recipes in it. And one of them I really want to try is, I'm just going to show the picture, is this like fried chicken, but it uses pecans as the breading instead of actual breading. So I'm really excited to like try that out at some point. But I think I was most excited about like the different trying to find one of them, like the adding like apples and like citrus flavors to like your meats and stuff like that. So like this took me back down memory lane for sure. And then I got this. It's not a cookbook, but so when I planned my getaway from my childhood abusers, I didn't tell anybody. Me and Theo didn't tell anybody where we were going or what we were doing. Like, we kept it secret because we knew that if the wrong person was told, like, it'd get back to them and like the whole thing would just be pointless, you know. So, but I had bought an atlas, a lot like this one. This one's from this one's from 2015. oh man, this must mean something. But so I mean, the version I got was from several years later, because it was 2020, yeah, 2020 when I went to extremes to get away from them. But I used an atlas like this to plan uh, my route for us to, get away from them and live free and everything. So, but through everything that happened, I lost that atlas, and I haven't really been able to find atlases like this anymore. Like I guess with the GPS and all that kind of stuff that they're not, I guess, as relevant anymore. But but yeah, so at some point I'm gonna go through here and see if I can, from memory, remember the route that he and I took, and because that was a big journey and traveled through some interesting places and some cool places too, but definitely some interesting places. And at some point I'll map that out, and I don't know yet if I'll share, but I might, I might, and stuff. But yeah, and then this one wasn't from the thrift store. But I'll probably put on my social media pages where I got this one from. But this one was pretty cool. It's not quite like all like the other pizza books that you get. Like they have some really cool and unique pizza recipes in here. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. And yeah, so I'm probably gonna wrap this video up because my special someone may be showing up soon, and I want to finish getting his gift basket together and cleaning up my cooking mess a little bit, and then. But maybe I'll take a bite of one of these cookies real quick, because we did make them together, and I'm just going to take a little bite out of one because I'm saving the other three for something special. So, uh, so let's see. Our peanut butter chip cookies. Oh, they're crumbly. Let's see. Mmm. Oh my gosh, that melts in your mouth. Okay. I'm gonna I'm gonna eat this whole cookie. The other cookies can be for something special. Oh wow. Wow. Mm-hmm. Really, really good. But yeah, thank y'all for joining. I don't know how long it'll take for this one to process. Hopefully the other one will be fully processed soon, so that whole one can be up. And then, yeah.